Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here. Today we are going to speak about the new gold standard in phakic IOLs, mostly dedicated to ICL Sizing. I'm Roger Zaldivar, head of the Instituto Zaldivar in Mendoza, Argentina. I have no financial disclosures. So I think that the pandemic, this incredible crisis that we have all struggled, has left a message. There is always a good time to reinvent ourselves, and definitely I can see in my patients that they have a different mindset today when we speak about surgeries. This is a new opportunity to make them get on board with different procedures, and of course phakic IOLs are among those very interesting procedures nowadays. So as I was saying, every crisis is an opportunity, and regarding the phakic industry, we have seen an incredible growth in the last couple of years. I always remember many years ago when my father was fully immersed in this technology. The price of the stock, look at what has happened with the most important company in the world, that is Star. So their stock has grown from around 23 years ago to 100. It had a peak of 162. This means what's happening in the world, and everyone now is looking at phakic IOLs like something really sexy, and a lot has to be with the safety profile, the overall safety profile with the lens, as was shown in this latest review done by Mark Packer. We've seen that this theory that changing the flow through the central aperture would definitely change the performance of the lens relating to cataracts and different problems that we experienced in the past. And results are true. Now we are very close to zero cataract formation, so which means that we can play a little safer with the lens closer to the crystalline lens. Of course, this is outside the US, where the B4C is approved. Here in US, hopefully you will have it soon, but this is important to highlight. So, but the story is not like this. The story is quite longer than what you know. So in 1994, my father, Roberto, together with Fengo, designed this first central flow in the lens, the phakic lens. Here you have a true picture and a video of what was the first design. You can see that these phakic IOLs didn't have the feet, but you can perfectly see the hole in the middle that was exactly the same size as the one that you have today, 316 microns, exactly the same. You want to see something cool? This is the surgery in 1994 of the first lens implanted inside the eye with the V4C back in those days. But the nice story is that this patient, let me show you, because this is true history. It took us many months to find actually this video. So you can see the technique was quite different. We didn't have a true injector or anything. And look, that's the lens inside the eye. But the interesting point was that the patent was issued in 1995 and already included the hole in the middle, to show you that this is not something new. This has been there for many years, and it was relaunched back in 2011. But good news for all of us is that, for example, this patient has around 25 years and still doesn't have a cataract. So the good news is that it's true that the performance is different. However, not having a cataract doesn't mean that you're going to be safe without a clear sizing methodology. And this is by far the only weakness that we can highlight today in the whole procedure. Sizing hasn't still been solved, despite we have good results. We have a very nice procedure. There is some room to space in sizing. So this hasn't been avoided, and this is what we really have to emphasize and focus. The worst complication that we can experience today as surgeons is having an angle closure glaucoma in a young patient. This can lead us to severe problems back in the nerve, and we can have anatomic pupil. So this is what we want to avoid, and more in a patient that is experiencing an elective procedure and at that age. So the question that we have to make is there a way to predict something that we have been trying forever. Well, there are two very famous predicting both formulas, both from Japan, Nakamura and Akihito, and they're both based in anterior chamber measurements, mainly in angle to angle. So we did a comparison in 22 eyes of 25 patients, and we measured exactly this 24 hours post-op, comparing exactly the predicted bulk of these two formulas. Let's see the results. So, for example, here we have the real bulk achieved in blue. This is exactly what happened next day. And this is the prediction bulk by Nakamura. You can tell that despite it might have a moderate correlation, there is a large number of scatter in the results. So, for example, this one, we have more than 500 microns of scatter. So they are not truly predicting in a very sophisticated way. And if we check Akihito, another one, look, we have a large scatter between them. So this is the mean prediction error, which is very acceptable, but when you see the range and the standard deviation, they are just unacceptable. So my take-home message in this topic is it's really difficult to predict bulk with anterior chamber measurement. You can do better than perhaps Y2Y, and we'll see some results, but it's very difficult to really be where we want to be, to have a universal and straightforward procedure. So this is the weak correlation between ciliary body, sulcus to sulcus, angle to angle, and Y2Y. You can see that there's not such a strong correlation. You see, there's a very big variability between them. So then, if we measure the sulcus to sulcus prediction, as we have been doing for last couple of years, are we going to have better results? Well, let's see what happens. So this meta-analysis carried on by Mark Packer showed that there wasn't really statistically significant difference in the achieved bulk comparing Y2Y and sulcus to sulcus. So where's the problem? Where are we failing? So the mistake is actually in the position. Look at this. This is a beautiful image of high-frequency ultrasound, high resolution, carried on by ArcScan, where you can see the ICL, and you can see a position here below the ciliary body, and here we have the other one below the ciliary body. So this is one position. Then we have another position, a below position that is, we have one under the ciliary body, as you can see here, and then we have an asymmetric position over the ciliary body at the sulcus. Then we have another available position that is both feet in the sulcus. So far we have three positions. This is another one showing how beautiful you can see with high resolution, this perfectly under the iris in the sulcus. And long story short, look, in our data, these 54 patients with pre and post, we have 83% of my myopic patients finish in a ciliary body position. Then you have asymmetric position in 13% of the cases, which is something to bear in mind. And more than now, we are speaking about presbyopic procedures with extended depth of focus optics. This is going to be critical. If we are going to have an extended depth of focus and we have tilt, it's going to make a difference. So we need to understand what we are doing in order to perform. Last but not least, we have a 3.7% that is going to the sulcus to sulcus. So all these formulas trying to predict sulcus to sulcus, they are only predicting in 3.7% of the cases because that's what's happening in those cases. It's interesting to take this into account. So, as I said, most of the existing prediction formulas are based either on Y2Y, when we speak about ICL and their own formula calculation, which is very basic, and then we have the other ones based in sulcus to sulcus. So it's something to bear in mind. So the correlation between sulcus to sulcus to ciliary body is 0.7, which is very acceptable. So that's something that we can work in the future once we have a very strong formula based in the best available, because we know that 84% goes to one place. We need to work on that measurement, and then we can derive to secondary measurement. But first we have to start with the strongest anatomical position where most of the ICLs are going. That's the rationale of this. So, but this doesn't stop here. We have, after the position that I have told you, we have 4 different positions that, or at least a situation that we can experience inside the eye. Number 1, as I told you, ciliary body to ciliary body. Then it can be in the ciliary body, in the middle of the ciliary body process. Then it can be at the sulcus, and then another situation is we can experience compression. So look at all the variables that we can experience in order to predict both. So this is why it's so complex. So why do ICL surgeons have acceptable results? This is a nice question. Well, because as I show you, in the world, not in US, in the rest of the world, today we are more relaxed with this undervoltage situation because of the behavior of the central front. We are more relaxed. There is a huge trend to decrease the size of the lens. Still, we do have outliers, and they are mostly located in this side, in the overball, and that's the most critical situation. But look at the range of results that you can have that they are acceptable. The question is, do we want to have this range, or can we make this tighter? Because if we can make this tighter, we can go under smaller eyes. We can increase the market too, and start doing presbyopic procedures in hyperopic, as they are trying to do. So we will extend our market. So 2.6% require an ICL exchange. This is important to highlight. Let me show you a couple of strategies that we have been doing lately. One of them, as I'm going to show you, is based in the ArcScan. That is something that I have been strongly recommending lately, because I do think that we can avoid most of the complications that we have experienced with this overvolting. With this, I'm going to show you the 3 outliers that we experienced in the last 3-4 months, and how could we have avoided them if we have the ArcScan. That's the take-home message. But look at this. So our technique always includes methylcellulose. We strongly recommend methylcellulose as the main viscoelastic to use with this platform. We do a central incision and a paracentesis. And what I was, and with no financial interest too, I just want to show you what we are doing with intraoperative OCT. I think that to attack what's happening with sizing, we need a package. And one of them by far includes the ArcScan, and the other step is to understand where we are finishing to avoid those extreme complications. So look at this. Here we have an intraoperative OCT. It's delivered by Hackstrike, and you can tell that we have a 1,300 volt. You can see it there. This is our immediate volt in the procedure. So we realize that that's a high volt. We don't want to finish with that. Perhaps this is a patient that we haven't done an ArcScan. We have surpassed this decision making, and look what we are doing. This is a non-toric IOL, and we are rotating it to the vertical position. The vertical meridian in the ciliary body and the sulcus, they both have a bigger size than compared to the horizontal. So in our experience, and this has just been published, we can decrease around 400 microns just by changing the position from horizontal to vertical. So it's like switching to a smaller size platform. So this is very important to decrease. So look, now from 1.3, you will see how we have decreased completely the size to a very acceptable position. That's what we are doing. So we presented this paper this month in the Journal of Refractive Surgery. You can clearly see how there is a very strong correlation between the intraoperative, post-op, and 1 day post-op. Very, very similar. So this is allowing us, adding the technology with the ArcScan, to do bilateral surgeries. This is what we have always dreamed. If we have a better pre-op assessment, and in those strange, very weird cases we can react on time, we do have a very strong possibility to do this as a standard base, like we have been doing bilaterally. So this is a very strong message. So this is the post-op. You can see that you have a smaller ball. This is post-op. Okay, from 1,300 we jump to 507. You see, this is how it works. So we have rotated 5% of our cases have been rotated as standard base, and we have achieved, as you can see here, around 430 microns of decrease by rotating 90 degrees. This is going to be published hopefully in the next 2 months. And there is an intermediate position that is oblique that we are, instead of 400, we are getting to 250. So let's get a little bit to the ArcScan. That is what brings us here, because I have all the guys looking at this. Okay, and now what's happening with the ArcScan? Okay, so this is a very interesting device. It's a high resolution UVM. We have never experienced something like this in UVM before. You can truly see details with this high resolution, and we can identify suitable exact landing position on the ciliary body, as I have shown before, most of the cases, and we can truly improve current outliers, as I'm going to show you. But the most important of all is we can get there to that safety profile that we have been driven. So let me share with you the 3 last outliers that we have in the clinic and how we could have avoided this by doing an ArcScan before. It happens that we have two operating rooms, one in Buenos Aires and the other one in Mendoza, and we only have an ArcScan in one of them. So 100% of the outliers we are experiencing, that's why I want one more, and this is what we are trying to negotiate here. But reality is that all the outliers are happening in the place where we don't have the ArcScan. That's reality. So look at this. If you see this case with these numbers, you have a white to white of 11.9. White to white, 11.9. Then you have an acceptable ACD of 2.9. For here and for FDA application was from 2.8 at the beginning, then they changed it to 3. But it's there, it's a very acceptable anterior chamber. And something that I would love to highlight is the ideal. Okay, we have a ciliary body to ciliary body of 11.2. If I tell you that number, don't pay attention to that because it's something new for most of us. So, just for you to bear in mind, 11.9 white to white and 2.9 of ACD. What if you go to star surgical calculation? What happens? Is it very sophisticated? Okay, so they are based in 2 measurements: white to white and ACD, and barely. Most of them, if you see there, it's very easy. 11.9, okay, and you have the white to white, so it's a 13.2, the most standard size. So this is what happened. We have a 0.97. We have an overvolt, not ideal volt. So and you can see here the angle is very tight. You have a very shallow angle there. So what happened here? What if we had this device before? So look, we have a very small ciliary valley to ciliary valley, very small, which means that we have a very high discrepancy between the white to white and the ciliary valley to ciliary valley. So if you have an 11.2 millimeters in our formula, the one that we are developing, and hopefully I can introduce it to you very soon, you have to put the 12.6. It's not a 13.2. So here you have one of the typical cases that you want to avoid. If I would have put the 12.6, we would have finished with a very acceptable volt. That's for sure. Let me show another case. 12.1 white to white. Typical. Whenever you tell me, and even my father with all the experience that he has, if I tell him, Roberto, if I tell you 12.1, immediately you will say that's a 13.2. That's what we do, just one size over. Okay, so let's run the calculation. So we have a 12.1 millimeter white to white, 2.8 ACD, smaller, but okay, let's do the calculation with star surgical calculator, like the standard surgeons do. Okay, we finish with a 13.2 decision. Okay, oh, what's happening here? We have a 200 microns of volt. That's an undervolt, very close. If this happens to you in US, that you don't have a central flow, you will finish with a cataract very soon. It is true. And if it happens with a high myopes, that you have a very high meniscus in the periphery, you're already touching it. That's a cataract in 3, 4, 5 months. That's true. This is real world. This is what happens. So what happened here? So we have the opposite. Instead of having a very small ciliary valley to ciliary valley, here we have a huge one. We have a 12 millimeter. You see? So with a 12 millimeter ciliary body to ciliary body position, the ideal vault should have been 13.7. So these are the two biggest variables: is ACD, lens rise, and ciliary body to ciliary body measurement. That's where we are really digging in and arriving to a very nice formula that hopefully will be available for you soon. Let me show you one more case, but this is real work. Okay, we have again 12.2 white to white. Here we have a lens rise of 1.3, 1,356 millimeters, and then we have a ciliary body to ciliary body of 12.2. So let's see. Again, always very easy, very basic. 12.2, 13.2. There's no way around. There's 1. This is the no volt, 0 volt. You have 0. Very, very small volt. What happened again? We have a huge ciliary body to ciliary body. So if you have a huge ciliary body and the lens is sitting, like 84% of the times it's going to sit in that position, you have the highest chances to have a very, very low volt. So all these three situations, we could have avoided them if we have an ArcScan in place. This is the lesson here. So this is the discrepancy for you to take into account, the discrepancy between white to white and ciliary body to ciliary body. It has absolutely nothing to do. It's like comparing pears with bananas, with apples. They're both fruit, but they don't have nothing to do. There's no relation, different flavor, everything. So just for you to bear in mind, the only reason that results are acceptable is because there is a huge range of forgiveness. But if you are doing a procedure, in an elective procedure, in a young patient, you really cannot afford to have those outliers. This is the take-home message. Conclusions: the Aquaport was a great step forward in the rest of the world, outside the world. It truly facilitated the surgical technique. It improved the overall safety profile of the platform. Predicting the vault more accurately would allow the ICL procedure to be applied universally, and I think this is what the company is looking for now with presbyopia, lower ad IOLs, low myopes and everything. We need to do this in a bilateral procedure, and in most of the patients, we see that the optics are amazing and everything. We just have to do this step forward in sizing to be completely universal. Ciliary body to ciliary body measurement by ArcScan looks extremely promising in order to predict the vault more accurately. Hopefully we'll have very soon a formula available for all of you. And near future looks really very promising and inspiring. And in order to keep with it, we need to start by improving what we have today. We have this available today. There's no reason why we shouldn't be using it as a standard basis. With this, I'm going to finish. It has been a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you very much.